All right, this video is talking about population growth. This may be useful if you're in the evolution unit or in the population ecology unit. Quick review. How do you know a group of individuals belong in the same species, or I'm sorry, in the same population? Because the individuals live in the same place at the same time, and they are the same species, which means they can reproduce and they can produce fertile offspring. Fertile means you're able to reproduce. So basically, the kids that they have are able to reproduce again. And if they're in the same population, they compete for food, water, and shelter, and mates to reproduce with. When we're talking about population growth, you have to talk about the gene pool, which we talked about in genetics. The gene pool is the entire collection of genes in a specific population. Remember, different forms of a gene are called alleles, so a gene pool is the available alleles in a specific population. Available resources such as food, water, shelter, and mates regulate, which means control, the growth of the population. Populations grow fastest when there are unlimited, meaning extra resources around. Populations stop growing when the resources start to run out because the resources are scarce, which means there are not enough available. These resources are called limiting factors, which are any resource in the environment that could keep a population from growing out of control. So pretty much anything that will limit the population from growing. Those are called limiting factors. We have two different types of population growth. You have density independent and density dependent. Okay, if you look at those two words, independent and dependent, the one on the left, independent, means that the population's growth is independent of how big the population is. And this one pretty much means that it depends upon how, I guess, the effect of, the growth of the population will be affected based upon how big or small the actual population is. So over here, let's do the density independent first. It says it doesn't matter the size of the population. Examples, fires and storms. If a fire or a storm breaks out in a population, it's going to pretty much have the same effect, regardless of how big or small the population is. Now, on the other side, things that depend on the population, that's density dependent. So it depends on the size of the population, determines the effect. Example, if there's a disease. So if there's some kind of disease in a small population, then it could really, really affect that whole population because it could pretty much go ahead and wipe out the whole population if it's too small. Now, if it's a really, really, really large population, a disease might, start and then eventually, it might maybe kill off some of the organisms in one area. But if there are a lot of organisms spread all out, then the disease may not even affect a group of organisms that are living farther away from where the disease did affect the organisms in that area. So long story short, if you have a really large population, disease would not affect you as much as if it would if you had a real small population. All right, let's talk about the normal growth curve. All right, there are these certain points we're going to talk about, and then we will see them on a chart or a graph on the next slide. So the first, A is going to represent the initial growth stage. B is going to represent the exponential growth, which occurs when the number of organisms keep increasing at a fast rate because nothing stops the population from growing, aka there are no limiting factors. The steady state is when the population remains about the same. It may increase a little bit, may decrease a little bit, but it remains basically about the same. And D, the carrying capacity, it is pretty much the capacity, well, I'll just go ahead and read it for you because it says it pretty well. The maximum number of individuals in a population that can survive on available resources, meaning food, space, water, etc. So an environment can support only a certain number of individuals. Once that number of individuals increases past that carrying capacity, then it's going to start to be a struggle for organisms to survive. Here is the graph of a population growth. You see this is the normal growth curve, and let me get my cursor. Down here, A, we had the initial growth stage when the population started to grow. Here you have the exponential, on B, the exponential growth stage, where they are growing really rapidly without any decrease at all, because there are no limiting factors. Once you get up here to the top, then that is the where it starts to kind of level off, and it's not really growing that much anymore, or not increasing. Then that is D, which stands for the steady state. Oh, sorry, wrong way. And then C is pretty much, where it's growing but kind of dying, or not dying, but it's increasing and decreasing pretty much steadily, and that is the carrying capacity, meaning at that rate where C is, that's the carrying capacity, the maximum amount of organisms that the area can support. A decline is a decrease in a population due to a decrease in birth rate or an increase in death rates. All right. And a birth rate is just the rate at which organisms are being born, and death rate is the rate at which organisms are dying in a population. All right. Extinction, you probably know this word from thinking about dinosaurs. A continuing decline in the population until no more individuals are left to reproduce. This is a disappearance of a species, which is extinction. And you see the graphs below showing a decline. This right here, let me get the cursor going. This is a decline. All right, and then this is extinction, where it starts to decline until there are no more individuals remaining. If you compare it to the decline, you have it decreasing, and then it starts to level off to where either the death rate decreases or the birth rate increases to where it starts to level off and the population starts to grow still. All right. Thank you very much.